4 teams now locked in to move on to the next stage of the World Championship. Today, you could say the group of debts have been paid. Sacrifices definitely made along the way. SKT obviously showing the strongest out of Group C today. Absolutely amazing. Second place finisher, though, EDG definitely looked like they have things to work on.
Yeah, I mean, EDG versus SKT turned out to be some of the most one-sided games in this group, surprisingly enough, even though Bangkok Titans were in there, because of how many mistakes EDG just made in the early game every single time they faced them.
Well, even when we saw them not against SKT, we look at that last game versus H2K, where they gave H2K quite a few openings to take that game, and unfortunately, I mean, even when the ball was directly passed into H2K's hands, they just sort of dropped it and wandered off.
Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned the ball here, because Ryu could basically have won the early game for H2K. They force a flash from Lulu in the mid lane. It's like, okay, perfect, let's re-gank.
Yeah.
Ball here from Ryu, he puts it on, perfect shockwave possible, get the kill, get the tower, and then he fires the ball back to himself and shields himself and runs away. And it's like, why? And that's simply H2K in a nutshell in this tournament here. Every time they have to step up and make that big play that can win the game versus SKT or EDG, they don't do it. They mess it up, and that's why they're now getting out of, or not getting out of the group.
A lot of people have said that, you know, barring SKT from this, skill isn't really going to take you too far in this world. A lot of the teamwork has been showing stronger than what skill has been bringing up, and a few of these plays absolutely show it. Changes as well for teams haven't been going as well as they would like. We see Amazing J stepping in and things not going well.
Yeah, again for EDG, they made the substitute. There was some talk about how Koro had been sick a little bit, couldn't maybe practice too much, and also how Amazing J would fit this patch better because he could play these carry top laners. The problem is he's not really going to carry on these top laners. Like, he can pick them, yes, but he can't really play them, it seems.
Well, that also makes us ask the question if this is EDG's best option. If they feel that the meta has moved out of Koro's favor into Amazing J's, then we must necessarily assume that Koro is even worse on these champions, because what we saw from him previously was a lot more tanks. Just leave him alone in the top side. And I think that's been not only a fault for Amazing J, but for the rest of the team. This is not a meta where you just leave your top laner out to dry and they can take care of themselves. They need to refocus their entire style of play to actually help their top laner, which is not something EDG's used to doing.
No, and I think that's very key, because there's a lot of people today who are talking about how, oh, it's Amazing J's fault, they're losing to SK Telecom and so on. No, Clearlove goes bot lane level 2, shows himself. You don't have that first gank, and Bengi's like, okay, I'm going to take your jungle, I'm going to
Even
go
against
top.
BKT, we saw Deft going and Moss making some huge plays that game, and EDG seemed to be scattered. Took them 20, 25 minutes to even find themselves a way back into that game. As you move on, that's knockout right there. That's not something you can work with.
There's been a lot of mistakes for EDG, especially for me, just how they play the early game in lane swaps when it comes to dragons. We had Mako just on the desk talking to Shock, saying there were a lot of problems in the lane swap they have to fix. I think depending on how long they have now until their first quarterfinal game, if they maybe have like multiple days extra because they get the Sunday game or so on, I can see them potentially fix some of them.
The thing that's so scary is that you look at a team like SKT that's actually changing out their mid laner, which nobody else does, and they're still having great results on champions you're not seeing from anybody else still. Faker on that rise, Karthus for Easy Hoon. It's going to be absolutely ridiculously hard to beat SKT.
I think you sound very optimistic in the assertion that maybe with like a day or two extra, you know, next week, that is going to change, because we're not talking about a simple plug and play here. This is a way, not only in terms of lane swapping, but in terms of Clearlove's jungle pathing, Mako's pathing throughout the map, and Korean teams. The 3 Korean teams we have here are all so top lane focused, right? The 3 Korean teams who had the strong top lane focus, KT, KOO, SK Telecom, all have these massive carry top laners. They're used to playing around them. That is not something EDG has in their bag of tricks. So the meta really, with this 5.18 patch, is very favorable right now for the Korean teams when we compare it to what we're seeing EDG do.
And I just think that EDG will have time to fix some of the problems, but it's not going to be enough to win Worlds, which was the whole, you know, the big talk coming in here. LGD, EDG could challenge SKT. With the mistakes they have now, I think it's enough to, again, if they do manage to get better and improve the following days, to maybe take out teams like the Flash Wolves and so on. I would still put EDG as the favorite in that matchup.
There's the shocker there for everybody that were EDG's coming off of MSI. They should perform like that again, right? And that's not what happened. So that fall is also on everybody's mind. Is that going to continue?
Well, the game's very different is a big part of it. And
very true.
It hasn't been kind to EDG's method of playing the game.
Has not. Looking at the other teams, H2K and SKT had to scrap through this group the entire time. Really not too much to say about these teams. BKT, like we said, did put up damage versus EDG. Was that carelessness? Did EDG, as you say, there's picks that you don't like, Monty, that just get on your nerves. Is EDG falling in too much of a lax position in the group stage or testing the waters?
I actually thought their draft was fine against SK Telecom in the second game. Their first draft against H2K made me very nervous with the Kassadin and the Darius and the Kalista, the low wave clear. I think that they have been a bit cocky, but there have been holes in their draft sort of all over the place. They really didn't know where to go. Only the Chinese teams have played Skarner so far. It really hasn't been a successful pick.
I haven't seen him too much lately. First week we saw him a few times and then kind of died out. I think for EDG versus Bangkok Titans, I mean, it's one of those games where the focus maybe isn't there 100% when the game starts. You kind of expect it to be an easy one, a walkover, and then you get a little bit surprised. They did manage to bounce back in the end because they had a good conversation to deal with that jinx. But it was scary. I mean, they could definitely have lost that game. And then suddenly it would have been could have been different when they faced H2K.
Well, not too much more to say about Group C. As we said, the group of debts have been paid. SKT is going to take that one with EDG on the top side. And we have to look towards tomorrow. Amazing games to come out. TSM, LGD, KT, and OG out of Group D. And Origin Gaming has slid under the radar a little bit here. Niels is having plays. Peke coming back on a little bit of a Nivea when he wants to have fun on that, so he's not having to show a ton of his picks, supposedly the weak link. Definitely a group that could get tossed up a little bit tomorrow.
I'm so excited for tomorrow because for me, the best game of the tournament so far was Origin versus KT Game 1. It's my favorite one to watch. It was very well played by both sides. I would like to see a tiebreaker between these two teams tomorrow just because I can't get enough of when they go head-to-head. And it'd be fun to have at least one tiebreaker in this tournament.
I'm looking at LGD. I mean, I hyped them up coming into the tournament. I said
we all did. We all did.
It's okay. Yeah, double pat.
They're going to play KT in the first game.
It's rough.
Second game of the day, first game for them. I expect that to just be a win for KT and then 0-4 for LGD. They're basically out of the tournament. They can only play spoiler later on. Origin is well taking on Team Solomid. That should be a victory for Origin. Suddenly we have the 4-0 and the 0-4 team, and that should basically decide how the group looks. Come on, Origin is going to take down Team Solomid. They're heavy favorites in that matchup, and I will be very disappointed if Origin doesn't make it out as number one.
Any given Saturday, we'll see.
I'm pretty sure that's the expression.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking at those games, though, TSM did take down LGD, the front runners to come into this group.
That was an ugly game, Riv.
There have been a lot of ugly games here.
Ugly. Tom Kench level of attractiveness right there. I really didn't like that game. I thought it was very poorly played from both teams, and LGD's plan of running the brand support and trying to shut down the Mordekaiser was foiled by their own incredibly poor team fighting and penchant for walking face first into TSM.
Why are we seeing all three Chinese teams struggle so much in the early game in this tournament here when it comes to playing a proper strategy? Like whenever they have the chance to do like a 1-3-1 setup, they mess it up and run around 5 members instead. PYL in that brand game loses the flash and goes aggressive, then TP comes in behind, he dies. EDG with their failed lane swaps. The Chinese team seem to have a lot of problem when it comes to early game strategy. We know the skills are there when you look at the members. But that really needs to be sorted out. I don't think LGD had the time to do it, though, so they're gonna
It's almost different from last year. We saw lane swaps catching Korean teams off guard. They weren't ready for the 2v1 dives. It would be something that was gentleman's agreement on and farm it out until the lanes broke down. And now it seems that China's kind of being taken off guard by that as they try to pressure different sides of the map. The lane swap is not working in their favor.
No, it's not, but it goes beyond that. We can talk about EDG, and we can say, okay, this team has some serious issues to work around playing with the lane swaps and playing around their top laners. But look at LGD. I mean, what a train wreck. Their draft is terrible.
Inside and out.
Their draft is terrible. They seem uncoordinated. They can't even play the double teleport strategy that they are pretty much responsible for bringing to this tournament in the first place. They can't play their pocket picks or their comfort picks. They can't play League of Legends right now. So
tell us how you really feel.
I hope Flame can really bring something new to this team because obviously Acorn's having a very poor tournament, but they have so much to fix. If they can 3-0 tomorrow, it will be a miracle.
True. I did say OG TSM. That was kind of some love for me there for NA, but I feel like TSM's almost in the same boat as LGD right now. Miscommunication completely plaguing this team, and it almost leaves KT and OG to fight for the rest of this group because we see Lost Boys still not communicating with the rest of the team. Santorin not being able to make anything happen. They need to find a honeymoon period when Lost Boy first came over, and all that seemed to just work out for them.
I feel like all the problems we highlighted for Team Solar Mid coming into the tournament turned out to be true. They're still here. Jungle support synergy, it's not there. Proper communication on the team is not there. Don't have a carry top lane that they can play around very effectively. They still put everything on Bjergsen in the mid lane, and that's just not the correct way to play right now if you look at all the top teams.
When we look at the percent damage breakdown of TSM, I don't have the exact stats in front of me, but it's something like 45% damage comes from Bjergsen. 12.7% comes from Dyrus. And this is a guy who's been playing Darius, all right?
He's starting to get more and more non-tanks.
If you compare that to a player like Smeb, who's doing over 25% of his team damage, that's a 13% overall decrease. Bjergsen is absolutely carrying the living hell out of TSM, and it is impressive, but no one else on that team is stepping up.
Just the rankings when it comes to these numbers here. Dyrus, I believe, is ranked 14 among top laners. Santorin is ranked 14 among junglers. Wild Turtle 14 among AD carries, and Bjergsen number 1 among mid laners. Like, that just shows how much
there's a lot of disparity there.
Him. They had now a few days. I don't think that's going to change anything. That entire boot camp as well for them. So it's still going to be about, can Bjergsen do extremely well in the early game, carry them into team fights?
I think it's even better for TSM's opponents, especially because we look at that top lane. How have some of these top laners been getting by in the first week? Darius spam. Darius on some of the weaker top laners of this tournament. And now, seen the Renekton, we know Fiora's good into it. This is a group that has Soaz, Flame, and Someday.
And we have to see what Flame can do now.
Someday is a very good Renekton player. It's his most played champion of all time. The Darius is not going to work anymore.
The Darius has been hot enough for a lot of people anyways. You see Balls getting the pentakill, but having a game that he actually wasn't that effective on. So these teams keep going for it. It's kind of just something that'll sit in the top lane.
So,
work itself out.
We do see when the pick gets ahead, how it can snowball out of control. In some of these games, it's just blind picking it is the risk, especially if you do not play around that top laner, because he's going to get counter-picked, he's going to lose the matchup, and then his effectiveness just drops dead, because then you don't offer anything really compared to some of the other top lane picks, like a Gnar, maybe that has at least a Mega Gnar in these team fights. So it's going to be interesting to see what TSM can do. I'm still just looking at Origin. Again, I'm expecting them to take number 1 in this group. They looked fantastic last week. They showed some different things as well. Kalista got taken away in the last game, and they still managed to win playing Sivir.
This is true.
Which is very, very key, because they looked so good with Kalista, and now it's not suddenly just Bandit and they can't do anything.
All teams have had time to look at everybody. Monty?
I think the same thing. I still have questions about Cloud9, how well they're going to do when some of their key strategies are taken away. CLG collapsed when that happened, but Origin didn't. And that's really what says to me that this is a team that actually has some substance to it, that has an amount of depth, and could be a serious contender here to make semis, or, you know, if they get very lucky and Peke continues to play at this level, maybe even go further. So I've been very impressed. I do hope that we get that. I really hope we have 2 5-1 teams in this group, that we get a really epic
6-0 Origin, KT can then take 2nd place, and they can meet somewhere. Let's say the final. You know, Origin takes out SKT, and they get KT in the final. That's going to happen.
All right.
We'll see what we have. Definitely want to thank everybody for joining myself, Deficio Bro, and Monty for another edition of Worlds tonight. Thanks for hanging out with us. Have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow, and GG.
Here we go, the beginning of the day here at the World Championship, Day 6.
Teleport from Amazing J is going to be cancelled as DD.
Suffisamment de dégâts, Bandit au sol, il reste Amazing J, c'est
the 2-0 against EDG here for SKT.
Nothing picked up, Odwanda still in the front line, Ryu pushed back, but does it really matter? G4 caught up and down goes Yasuo.
You said it, right, probably?
Yes, he said it.
Yeah. You guys are stupid, and I'm getting triggered, and I'm gonna troll this game.
Mina, Lolo die. Line cover, Lolo. AD.
Okay, AD no kashi.
Nice.
EDG, after a comeback from 6,000 gold, picked themselves up a victory.
as SK Telecom chasing down Bang! The damage from Bang is insane right now. Double kill. Can he get more? Triple kill. It's another win for SKT. They're 5-0 in the group now. Needs one last fight. Amazing J goes in under Ryu. Ryu gets evaporated. Lulex running for his life. And Odoamne can't participate. H2K says, do you have a win? And EDG says, go fish. Lloyd, whoa! Can you say critical hit? Man, he rolled like 620s on that one. On the run, pops that ultimate. There's a grand challenge. No, that cow's got a family. He's got a herd. Oh, the humanity. SKT goes 6-0 in groups. GG.